6 months later. I love you. 3 words. Simple as that. But when they came out of Stellan Murdoch's mouth, the man who swore our marriage would be just a mutually beneficial business transaction, my heart completely forgot how to function. We were on the rooftop terrace of the Murdoch Tower, the city glittering below like a million fulfilled promises, and all I could think was, how the hell did we get here? Oh, right. I remember perfectly. It all started with an indecent proposal, a plate of burnt lasagna, and the worst Wednesday of my life. 3 months earlier. Are you asking me to marry you? My voice came out 3 octaves higher than normal, making half of Café Belvedere turn toward our table. Perfect. I'd always dreamed of having my most embarrassing moment witnessed by strangers drinking overpriced cappuccinos. Stellan Murdoch, yes, that's Stellan Murdoch, CEO of Murdoch Industries, and the most irritatingly handsome man who ever had the misfortune of crossing my path, didn't even blink. He simply picked up his espresso cup, black, no sugar because of course, and looked at me with those steel-gray eyes that probably made investors cry in meetings. Don't be dramatic, Margot. I'm proposing a business arrangement. A marriage isn't a business arrangement. In this case, it's exactly that. When I took a deep breath, counted to 10, considered throwing my croissant in his face, rejected the idea because the croissant was delicious and he didn't deserve it. Let's recap. 3 hours ago, I was in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, covered in flour, don't ask, when my best friend Cecilia called me in absolute panic, saying that Stellan Murdoch himself, wanted to meet with me urgently. Cecilia worked as an executive assistant at Murdoch Industries, and apparently my name had come up in a strategic meeting. My name, Margot Flynn. Freelance pastry chef, owner of an artisanal cake business that barely paid rent, and someone whose most recent accomplishment was making a 3-tier unicorn cake that didn't collapse. Let me get this straight, I began, using my explaining to a 5-year-old tone. You, Stellan Murdoch, billionaire, CEO, New York's most eligible bachelor according to Forbes. 3rd most eligible, he corrected, and I swear I saw a flash of something like humor in his eyes. Logan Pierce and that Italian actor ranked ahead of me. Want to marry me, Margot Flynn, a person who yesterday had to use a discount coupon to buy toothpaste. Yes. Why? Stellan leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since we sat down, he looked human, tired even. He ran his hand through his perfectly styled black hair, which probably cost more to cut than my monthly rent, and sighed. My grandfather is dying. The air left my lungs all at once. Okay, not what I expected. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived 87 years doing exactly what he wanted. Stellan's voice was controlled, but there was something underneath, something he didn't want me to see. The problem is, he has one condition for me to officially take over as CEO of the company. An absolutely archaic and ridiculous condition that he refuses to remove from his will. Let me guess, you need to be married. Married and establishing roots, as he puts it. 6 months of proven marriage before he signs the final papers. Stellan studied me with that penetrating gaze. You need money. A lot more than toothpaste coupons if the rumors are correct. My face heated. Great. So he knew about the financial disaster that was my life. Cecilia has a very big mouth, I muttered. She cares about you. And when she mentioned your situation, and mentioned that you were unconventional, the solution seemed obvious. Unconventional, I repeated, not sure whether to be offended or flattered. You won't fall in love with me. He said this as if it were scientific fact. You made it very clear at the Thompson wedding that you think I'm a soulless capitalist robot. I believe those were your exact words. Shit. The Thompson wedding. 6 months ago. I was making the cake, a huge job that earned me good money, and I may have had a little too much champagne after 15 hours decorating sugar flowers. Stellan was there as a guest, being all elegant and untouchable in his $3,000 suit. And when Cecilia asked me what I thought of him, I may have expressed my opinions, loudly, very loudly. I didn't know he was 10 feet away. You heard that? Every word. Now he was definitely amused, the corner of his mouth curving in an almost smile that probably melted secretaries. It didn't work on me. Lie. It worked a little. Which brings me to my point. This would be a purely professional arrangement. You pretend to be my wife for 6 months. Attend events, live in my penthouse, convince my grandfather we're a real couple. In return, I pay off all your debts, fund your own bakery, and give you $1 million when we sign the divorce papers. Silence. $1 million. My debts paid. My own bakery. You're insane, I whispered. I'm desperate. There's a difference. What if I say no? Stellan shrugged, but his eyes never left mine. Then I find someone else. But you'd lose the opportunity to completely change your life. And let's face it, Margot, you don't exactly have a lot of options right now. It was cruel, true, and exactly the push I needed to consider this whole insanity. 6 months, I repeated. And then we never see each other again? Never again. What if your grandfather suspects? He won't. I'm very good at pretending. Something dark crossed his face. Family practice. I bit my lip. Every cell in my body screamed this was a terrible idea. But then I thought about the eviction notice that came yesterday. The collection calls. My mother, who needed surgery and had no health insurance. Rules, I said. If I agree, and that's a giant IF, we need rules. Stellan relaxed, just a little, but enough for me to notice. Obviously, no sex. Agreed. Separate bedrooms. I have 6 suites. Pick your favorite. And when it's over, it's over. No strings attached, no drama, no using your money to control my life. Margot. He leaned forward, and suddenly the space between us became very, very small. I don't want to control your life. I barely want you in mine. This is business. Pure and simple. Why did that hurt? It shouldn't hurt, but it did. Fine, I replied, lifting my chin. Then we have a deal, Mr. Murdoch. He extended his hand, large, warm, completely devoid of rings or any personality. Future Mr. and Mrs. Murdoch, he corrected. When our fingers touched, an electric spark shot up my arm, probably static, or a sign from the universe saying I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I shook his hand. Let's do this. And that's how I, Margot Flynn, agreed to marry the coldest man in New York. What could go wrong? Spoiler, absolutely everything. Later that evening, you did what? Cecilia's screech could probably be heard in New Jersey. She stood in the middle of my cramped apartment, still wearing her pristine Murdoch Industries blazer, looking at me like I'd just announced I was joining a cult. I agreed to marry Stellan Murdoch for 6 months, I repeated calmly, stirring my instant ramen. Want some noodles? Margaret Elizabeth Flynn. Oof, full name. I'm in trouble. Have you lost your mind? She grabbed my shoulders, her perfectly manicured nails digging in slightly. This is Stellan Murdoch. He eats people like you for breakfast. I'm not that appetizing before coffee, I said, but my attempt at humor fell flat. Cecilia collapsed onto my second-hand couch, head in her hands. Okay. Walk me through this. How did we get from urgent meeting to fake marriage? I told her everything. The dying grandfather. The inheritance clause. The $1 million offer. By the time I finished, Cecilia was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. That's actually kind of genius, she finally said. What? Think about it. You get your bakery, your mom gets her surgery, and Stellan gets his company. Nobody's getting hurt. It's just 6 months of playing pretend. She paused. But Margot, you need to be careful. Stellan isn't like the guys you've dated. He's complicated. Complicated how? He's been engaged before. 3 years ago, Isabella Montrose, old money, perfect pedigree, everything his family wanted. Cecilia's voice softened. 2 weeks before the wedding, She left him for his business rival. It was all over, page 6. He hasn't dated anyone seriously since. Something uncomfortable twisted in my chest. That's awful. Yeah, and it made him colder, more closed off. She looked at me intently. Just remember, this is business. Don't try to fix him, Margot. That's how people get hurt. The next morning, Stellan's driver picked me up at 9 a.m. sharp. And by driver, I mean an actual chauffeur in a black suit driving a car that cost more than my entire life. "Miss Flynn," he greeted with a slight nod. "Mr. Murdoch is expecting you at the penthouse." The penthouse. Right. My new home for the next 6 months. The Murdoch Tower dominated the Manhattan skyline, all glass and steel and intimidating architecture. The elevator to the penthouse required a key card and probably a DNA sample. When the doors opened directly into the apartment, my jaw hit the floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The living room alone was bigger than my entire apartment building. Everything was sleek, modern, and completely devoid of personality, like a luxury hotel suite designed by someone who'd never experienced human emotion. "You're here." I spun around. Stellan emerged from what I assumed was his home office, wearing dark jeans and a fitted black sweater that should be illegal. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it, and he looked younger somehow. Almost approachable. Almost. "This place is," I gestured vaguely, "terrifying." His lips twitched. "Most people say impressive. I'm not most people. You should know that by now." Indeed. He moved to the kitchen, all marble and chrome, and started making coffee. Real coffee, from an espresso machine that probably cost more than a car. "Your suite is on the east wing. I've had your belongings moved already." "You, what? I didn't give you my key." "Cecilia did." He handed me a perfect cappuccino, complete with foam art. She also provided a list of your dietary restrictions, your schedule, and a detailed note about how if I hurt you, she'll destroy me. Despite everything, I smiled. She really said that? She implied it strongly. I respect her loyalty. Stellan leaned against the counter, studying me. "We need to discuss logistics. My grandfather wants to meet you tomorrow night. Family dinner at his estate in Connecticut." My stomach dropped. "Tomorrow? That's fast." "He's dying, Margot. We don't have time for a lengthy courtship." His voice was matter of fact, but something flickered in his eyes. "We'll need a story. How we met, how I proposed, why you said yes. The truth seems complicated. We'll use partial truth. We met at the Thompson wedding. I was captivated by your spirited personality." Was that a hint of humor? "We've been secretly dating for months. I proposed last week because life's too short to wait." "Romantic," I said dryly. "Believable," he corrected. "My grandfather values tradition, but he also respects passion. If he thinks I'm genuinely in love with you, he'll sign the papers." "And you can fake being in love?" Stellan's gaze locked with mine, intense and unreadable. "I can fake anything, Margot. The question is, can you?" Challenge accepted. "Watch me," I said, setting down my cup. "But I need something from you first." "What?" "I need to understand you. If I'm going to convince your grandfather we're in love, I need to know who Stellan Murdoch actually is. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, you." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his entire face. "That's the most terrifying thing anyone's ever asked me." "Good," I replied. "I like keeping you on your toes." And just like that, standing in his sterile, perfect penthouse with a cappuccino in my hand and a fake marriage contract in my future, I realized something important. This was either going to be the best decision of my life or the biggest mistake. Probably both. Contract of Hearts. Chapter 3. Meeting the Family. The next evening. Murdoch Estate, Connecticut. The Murdoch family estate looked like something out of a period drama. All rolling hills, ivy-covered stone, and enough land to hide several bodies. Not that I was thinking about murder. Much. "You're fidgeting," Stellan observed from the driver's seat. He'd insisted on driving himself, which apparently was unusual enough that his driver looked personally offended. "I'm not fidgeting. I'm adjusting." "You've adjusted your dress 4 times in the last mile." I stopped tugging at the emerald silk dress he'd had delivered to my suite that morning. Designer, perfectly tailored, probably cost more than my car. I'm about to lie to a dying man. I'm allowed to fidget. Stellan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "My grandfather is many things. Sentimental isn't one of them. Don't let him intimidate you." "Is that what he does?" "It's what he does best." He pulled up to the circular driveway, where a massive oak door stood like the entrance to a fortress. "Remember, we're madly in love. You find me charming." "That's the biggest lie of all," I muttered, but I was smiling. Before I could open my door, Stellan was there, offering his hand. When I took it, he leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "Showtime, Mrs. Murdoch." Mrs. Murdoch. Why did that send shivers down my spine? The door opened before we could knock. A woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and a severe expression appeared. "Master Stellan, your grandfather is waiting in the study." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." Stellan's hand found the small of my back, guiding me inside. The casual intimacy of the gesture felt shockingly natural. "This is Margot, my fiancée." Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change, but her eyes swept over me with the intensity of a TSA scanner. "Congratulations. He's been expecting you." The study was exactly what I'd imagined. Dark wood, leather-bound books, a fireplace crackling with unnecessary ambience. And in a high-backed chair that might as well have been a throne sat Theodore Murdoch. He was smaller than I expected, diminished by age and illness. But his eyes, the same steel gray as Stellan's, were sharp as daggers. "So," he said without preamble, "this is the baker who captured my grandson's heart." "Pastry chef," I corrected before I could stop myself. "Bakers make bread. I make art that happens to be edible." Stellan tensed beside me, but Theodore's eyes gleamed with something like approval. "Spirit. Good. The last one was all manners and no spine." He gestured to the sofa. "Sit. Tell me how you two met." We'd rehearsed this. Stellan had drilled me for 2 hours last night, going over every detail until I could recite our fake love story in my sleep. But now, with Theodore's penetrating gaze on us, my mind went blank. "The Thompson wedding," Stellan said smoothly, his arm sliding around my shoulders. 6 months ago. Margot made the cake. 5 tiers, hand-painted flowers. I told her it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "I thought he was talking about the bride," I added, finding my rhythm. Turned out he meant the cake. I didn't know whether to be flattered or offended. "Both, probably," Stellan said, and there was genuine humor in his voice. "You told me I had the emotional depth of a corporate tax form. I was tipsy. You were honest." His thumb traced small circles on my shoulder, and I had to remind myself this was acting. Just acting. It was refreshing. Theodore watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. "And when did you realize you were in love?" Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Stellan looked at me, and something passed between us. An understanding, maybe, or a challenge. "There wasn't one moment," he said quietly, never breaking eye contact with me. "It was gradual. The way she laughs at her own jokes. How she tastes everything she bakes with this little concentrated expression. The fact that she'd rather fight with me than agree just to be polite." His voice dropped. "She makes everything complicated, and somehow that makes everything better." My heart forgot how to beat. He was acting. This was all acting. "So why did it feel so real?" "And you, Margot?" Theodore prompted. "What do you love about my grandson?" I swallowed hard. Looked at Stellan, really looked at him. at the man who'd made me coffee this morning without being asked, who'd noticed I was nervous before I said a word, who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, but still found time to smile at my terrible jokes. He pretends to be cold, I heard myself say. But he's not. He's just careful. Like he's been hurt before and he's afraid to risk it again. I held his gaze. And I think maybe I want to be brave enough for both of us. The air between us crackled with something electric and terrifying. Theodore cleared his throat. Well, that was sufficiently nauseating. But he was smiling. Actually smiling. When's the wedding? 3 weeks, Stellan said. Small ceremony, just family. Make it 2 weeks. I'd like to be there, and my doctors aren't optimistic about 3. Theodore stood with difficulty. Welcome to the family, Margot. Try not to let him turn you into a robot. After he left, Stellan and I sat in silence for a long moment. That was, I started. Convincing, he finished. We're good at this. Yeah, good at lying. His jaw tightened. It's not lying if it serves a purpose. Isn't it? I stood, suddenly needing distance. We should go. In the car, neither of us spoke for the first 20 minutes. Finally, Stellan broke the silence. What you said in there, about me being careful. Acting, I interrupted. Just like you taught me. Right, acting. He didn't sound convinced. You're good at it. So are you. Another silence, this one heavier than before. Margot. Don't. I stared out the window. Let's just not. Because analyzing what happened in that study, examining why my heart raced when he looked at me, acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, this fake relationship was starting to feel dangerously real, that way lay disaster, and we still had 5.5 months to go. 1 week later. I looked like a meringue that gained sentience. Cecilia snorted champagne through her nose. We were at Celestine's bridal boutique, the kind of place where you needed an appointment 6 months in advance, and they served Dom Perignon while you shopped. Stellan had called in favors to get us in on short notice. The dress currently suffocating me was all tulle, crystals, and structural engineering that defied physics. Beautiful, yes. Me? Absolutely not. It's very princess, Cecilia offered diplomatically. I'm not a princess. I'm a baker who burns toast. I turned to the boutique manager, whose smile was starting to crack. Do you have anything less aggressive? Perhaps something simpler? She disappeared into the back, muttering about artistic vision. Cecilia helped me out of the meringue monstrosity. So, living with Stellan for a week, how's that going? Fine. Fine. Completely fine. Totally normal. Not weird at all. You're a terrible liar. I collapsed onto the velvet sofa. He makes me breakfast, see, every morning. Perfect cappuccinos, and those little pastries from the French bakery I mentioned once. He remembers how I take my coffee. He leaves notes about his schedule so I know when to expect him home. It's thoughtful. And that's a problem because it's not real, I groaned. None of this is real. In 6 months, he'll go back to his perfectly organized life, and I'll go back to my chaotic apartment and we'll never see each other again. That was the deal. But nothing. There is no but. Margot. The dressing room door opened. I found something I think you'll... Oh. We both froze. Stellan stood in the doorway holding a garment bag, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. Me in my underwear and a complicated strapless bra. Cecilia holding the rejected dress, champagne glasses everywhere. I'm so sorry. I didn't... The staff said, I'll just... He spun around so fast, he nearly knocked over a mannequin, presenting me with a view of his very tense shoulders. I brought your phone. You left it at the penthouse, and I thought since I was downtown I could, but clearly this was a mistake. Stellan. I grabbed a silk robe from the chair, laughing despite my mortification. You can turn around. I'm covered. He turned slowly, his face slightly flushed. It was the most human I'd ever seen him look. What's in the bag? I asked, nodding to the garment he was clutching. Nothing. It's... He hesitated. My mother's wedding dress. Mrs. Chen mentioned you were shopping and I thought, but it's probably outdated. You should choose something you actually like. My heart did a stupid little flip. Cecilia, reading the room with her usual precision, grabbed her purse. I just remembered I have a... thing that I need to do. Immediately. She kissed my cheek. Try the dress, you stubborn woman. She breezed past Stellan. And you. Good save with the phone excuse. Very smooth. After she left, silence stretched between us. You didn't have to bring my phone, I said quietly. You have 3 missed calls from your mother. I thought it might be important. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. Thank you. I took the phone, our fingers brushing. That electric spark again. And the dress, and can I see it? Something vulnerable crossed his face. You don't have to wear it. I know we're just playing pretend, I know. I unzipped the garment bag and gasped. It was perfect. Simple ivory silk that caught the light like water, delicate lace sleeves, a flowing skirt that looked like it would move like a dream. Elegant, without being ostentatious, timeless. It's beautiful, I whispered. My mother wore it in 1985. She'd want someone to get use out of it. He shoved his hands in his pockets. She died when I was 12. Car accident. Stellan, I'm so sorry. It's why my grandfather is the way he is. Losing his daughter broke something in him. He became obsessed with legacy, with the family name continuing. His voice was carefully neutral. Hence the archaic marriage requirement. I held the dress against me, studying him. Is that why you've never married? Because it was required instead of chosen? Maybe. He met my eyes. Or maybe I've never found someone worth the risk. The air between us shifted, charged with possibility and danger. Try it on, he said softly. I'll wait outside. The dress fit like it was made for me. Like fate or cosmic coincidence or something equally terrifying had decided this was meant to be. When I emerged from the dressing room, Stellan was examining a display of veils with intense concentration. He turned, and whatever he saw made him go completely still. Margot. I know it's just for show, I said quickly. But you're stunning. He crossed to me in 3 strides. Absolutely stunning. His hand lifted, hovering near my face like he wanted to touch but didn't trust himself. I held my breath. There's an eyelash, he murmured, gently brushing my cheek. Make a wish. I don't believe in wishes. Pretend. His thumb lingered against my skin. Just this once. I closed my eyes. Wished for something I couldn't even name. When I opened them, Stellan was closer, his gaze locked on mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Margot! Mr. Murdoch! The boutique manager burst in, tablet in hand. I have the menu options for your approval. Oh! She took in the scene, a knowing smile spreading across her face. Don't you two look perfect together? Stellan stepped back like I'd burned him. Send the menus to my office. The spell shattered. I should change, I said, gathering the skirt. Right. Yes, of course. Back in my regular clothes, the magic of the moment faded. Reality reasserted itself. This was a business arrangement. The dress was a costume. And whatever just almost happened was dangerous, wishful thinking. In the car, Stellan was quiet, his jaw tight. Thank you, I said finally. For the dress. For everything. It's nothing. It's not nothing. I turned to face him. You could have sent an assistant. You could have just called about the phone. But you came yourself. Margot. I know. This is just business. The dress is just a dress. We're just pretending. I looked out the window. But sometimes, Stellan, I forget we're acting, and that scares me. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't respond. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. Me too. 2 words, but they changed everything. Wedding day. Don't cry. If you cry, I'll cry. And I spent 40 minutes on this eyeliner. My mother squeezed my hands, tears already streaming down her face. We were in the bridal suite of the Murdoch estate, surrounded by flowers and nervous energy, and the weight of what I was about to do. My baby girl getting married, she sobbed. I never thought, after everything with your father. Mom. I hugged her carefully, mindful of the dress. It's okay. I'm okay. If only that were true. The past week had been a blur of wedding preparations, stolen glances, and moments that felt too real. Stellan had been different, softer. He'd held my hand during the rehearsal dinner, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm that had nothing to do with convincing his family. He'd kissed my forehead goodnight before retreating to his suite, and I'd stood in the hallway for 10 minutes trying to remember how to breathe. This was supposed to be simple, a business transaction. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall. 5 minutes, Miss Flynn, someone called through the door. Miss Flynn, soon to be Mrs. Murdoch, temporarily. Fake. Nothing real about any of this. So why did my hands shake as I picked up my bouquet? The ceremony was in the estate's garden, under an arch dripping with white roses. 30 guests, all family and close friends who'd been told our whirlwind romance story. Theodore sat in the front row, oxygen tank beside him, but his eyes were bright with approval. The string quartet started playing. This was it. Cecilia, my maid of honor in a dusty rose dress, appeared at my side. Ready to fake marry the hell out of that gorgeous man? Not even a little bit. Perfect. That's the spirit. She squeezed my arm. For what it's worth, the way he looks at you, that's not fake. Before I could process that, the music swelled. Everyone stood. And there, at the end of the aisle, was Stellan. He wore a charcoal suit that should be illegal, his dark hair perfectly styled. But it was his expression that undid me. He looked vulnerable, nervous, like he was making a real promise instead of signing a contract. I forced my feet to move. One step, another. Each one bringing me closer to a decision I couldn't take back. When I reached him, he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "Hi," I whispered. "Hi." His voice was rough. "You look like a bride?" "Like mine." My heart stopped. Started. Stopped again. The officiant cleared his throat, beginning the ceremony. I barely heard the words. All I could focus on was Stellan's hand holding mine, warm and steady and real. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever, hold your peace. Silence. Heavy. Loaded. I waited for someone to call us out, to expose this charade. But Theodore just smiled, and the moment passed. "Stellan Murdoch, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" He looked at me, really looked at me, and something passed between us. Understanding, maybe, or acknowledgement that we were in far deeper than either of us planned. "I do." "Margot Flynn, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" This was it, my last chance to run, to save myself from whatever this was becoming. But when I opened my mouth, only 2 words came out. "I do." The officiant smiled. "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Oh God, we hadn't practiced this part. Stellan's hand cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "Okay," he murmured, so quietly only I could hear. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. His lips met mine, soft and gentle and absolutely devastating. It was supposed to be for show, a quick peck to satisfy the crowd. Instead, it felt like coming home. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer. I gripped his lapels, drowning in the taste of him, the feel of him, the rightness of this moment that was supposed to be wrong. Someone wolf whistled. Laughter rippled through the crowd. We broke apart, both breathing hard. "Wow," I whispered. "Yeah." His eyes were dark, intense. "Wow." The reception was elegant chaos. Dinner, toasts, Theodore giving a surprisingly emotional speech about love and legacy. Through it all, Stellan never left my side, his hand on my back, his fingers laced with mine. Small touches that sent electricity through my entire body. "Time for the first dance," Cecilia announced, way too cheerfully. Stellan led me to the dance floor as a slow jazz number began. His hand settled on my waist, mine on his shoulder, and suddenly we were swaying together like we'd done this 1,000 times. "You're a good dancer," I said, surprised. "Mandatory lessons," my mother insisted. He pulled me closer. "You're not bad yourself." "YouTube tutorials." I laughed. "I practiced in my apartment last week. My neighbor complained about the noise." "You practiced for this?" "I didn't want to embarrass you in front of your family." Something shifted in his expression. "Margot, you could never—" He stopped. Tried again. "This week, living with you, planning this wedding. It's been complicated?" "Perfect." The word hung between us. "And that terrifies me." "Me too," I admitted. "Because in 5.5 months, this ends. And I don't know if I—" "Stellan!" A voice cut through the moment. A woman in a designer gown approached, her smile sharp as glass. "I heard the news. Congratulations on your sudden marriage." Stellan's entire body went rigid. "Isabella." Oh no. Isabella Montrose, the ex-fiancée, here, at our wedding." "I had to see it for myself," she continued, her eyes scanning me dismissively. "You've certainly downgraded from old money to—" She gestured vaguely at me. "Baker, was it?" "Pastry chef," I corrected, lifting my chin. "And you must be the woman who wasn't smart enough to marry him." Her smile froze. Stellan's hand tightened on my waist. "Isabella, you should leave." "Oh, come now. I just wanted to offer my congratulations." She leaned in conspiratorially. "Word of advice, sweetheart. When Stellan gets bored, he disappears. Emotionally, physically. Don't say I didn't warn you." She swept away, leaving poison in her wake. I pulled back from Stellan. "Is that true? Margot, did you disappear on her?" "It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated." I stepped out of his arms. "I need air." I fled the dance floor, ignoring the curious stares, the whispers. Found myself in the garden, gasping for breath. What was I doing? Falling for a man who would leave me in 6 months anyway? Who had a history of emotional unavailability? "Margot, wait." Stellan caught up to me by the rose arch, still decorated with wilting flowers. "Please, just listen." "Why should I? This isn't real, remember?" My voice cracked. "In 6 months you get your company, I get my money, and we never see each other again. That was the deal." The deal changed. He stepped closer. "It changed when you moved into my penthouse and made it feel like home. When you laughed at my terrible jokes and challenged every assumption I had about what I wanted. It changed when I realized I was planning a future that included you." His voice broke. "I'm falling for you, Margot, and I don't know how to stop." The world tilted. "You... what?" "I love you. Simple, direct, devastating. I know I shouldn't. I know this wasn't the plan, but I do." And there it was. The truth I'd been running from. I loved him too. Still wedding night. "You love me." I said it like I was testing the words, seeing if they'd shatter in the air between us. Stellan stood there in his perfect suit, under the wilting roses, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. "Yes. This is insane. I know. We had a deal, 6 months, clean break, no complications. I know that too. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. But somewhere between the fake breakfast conversations and the very real way you look at me when you think I'm not watching, I fell, hard. My heart was doing gymnastics. Stellan, Margot, there you are. Cecilia rushed over, slightly drunk and entirely oblivious. Your mom's looking for you. Something about the cake cutting and... Oh. She looked between us, reading the tension. Did I interrupt something? No, I said, too quickly. We were just talking, Stellan finished, his mask sliding back into place. Professional, distant, like he hadn't just torn his chest open. We should get back. He walked past me without another word, leaving me standing there with my best friend and a heart that didn't know whether to soar or break. What just happened? Cecilia whispered. I have no idea. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. Stellan played the perfect groom, attentive, charming, every inch the man in love. But there was a distance now, a wall I'd helped build with my non-answer. By the time we left for the penthouse, our honeymoon suite for the night before we flew to the Maldives tomorrow for appearances, I felt hollowed out. The car ride was silent, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Inside the penthouse, Stellan loosened his tie, poured himself a scotch, and stared out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. You should get some sleep, he said without turning. Early flight tomorrow. Stellan, please. His voice was raw. I shouldn't have said anything. It was selfish. We had an agreement, and I complicated it. That's on me. Stop it. I crossed to him, yanked the glass from his hand. Stop pretending you're some emotionless robot who made a tactical error. You told me you love me. That's not a complication, it's a mistake. Terrifying, the word burst out. It's terrifying because I love you too. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Stellan turned slowly. What? I love you, you infuriating man. Tears burned my eyes. I love how you remember my coffee order and leave me notes and pretend you don't care when you clearly do. I love that you gave me your mother's dress and looked at me like I hung the moon when I walked down that aisle. I love you, and it's destroying me because in 5 months, you'll wake up and realize this was just proximity and convenience and... He kissed me. Not the careful, controlled kiss from the ceremony. This was desperate, hungry, years of loneliness and fear burning away in the heat between us. His hands tangled in my hair, mine gripped his shoulders, and we stumbled backward until I hit the window, the city lights a blur behind us. Does this feel like convenience? He gasped against my mouth. Does this? No, I breathed. But Stellan, what about the contract? What about... Burn the contract. His forehead pressed to mine. I'll give you everything we agreed on, the bakery, the money, all of it, and you never have to see me again if that's what you want. But I need you to know this is real for me. You're real for me. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, insistent. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. You should check that, Stellan said, pulling back. 14 missed calls, all from my mother's number. My blood ran cold. I called back with shaking hands. Mom? Margot. Her voice was thick with tears. I'm at the hospital. It's my heart. They're saying they want to do emergency surgery, but the insurance... I'm coming. I was already grabbing my purse. I'm coming right now. Which hospital? She told me. Presbyterian. 20 minutes away in traffic. I hung up, turned to Stellan. I know. I'm coming with you. You don't have to... Margot. He cupped my face. Your problems are my problems now. That's what love means. Let me help. We made it to the hospital in 12 minutes. Stellan may have broken several traffic laws. My mother looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred. Her face lit up when she saw us. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't want to ruin your wedding night. Mom, don't. I grabbed her hand. What did the doctors say? Blocked artery. They need to operate tonight, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. The insurance won't cover it all. I'd need $20,000 up front. $20,000 I didn't have. Wouldn't have for months when the contract ended. We'll handle it, Stellan said quietly. He was already on his phone. Dr. Morrison, Stellan Murdoch, I need you at Presbyterian immediately. No, not me. My mother-in-law. Yes, the best cardiac team you have. Within 20 minutes, 3 specialists appeared. Within an hour, my mother was in surgery with the best doctors money could buy. Stellan never left my side. We sat in the waiting room, still in our wedding clothes, drinking terrible coffee while I fell apart. Thank you, I whispered for the 100th time. Stop thanking me. He pulled me closer, let me curl into his side. This is what partners do. But the contract, screw the contract, Margot. I meant what I said. I love you. This isn't about the agreement or my grandfather or anything else. It's just you and me. He kissed my hair. And I'm not going anywhere. Hours later, the surgeon emerged, smiling. The procedure was successful. Your mother's going to be fine. I burst into tears. Relief, exhaustion, too many emotions to name. Stellan held me while I sobbed, his hand stroking my back, murmuring reassurances. When I finally pulled back, wiping my eyes, I looked at this man who'd charged into an emergency room in a tuxedo, who'd called in favors without hesitation, who'd held me through the worst night of my life. I love you, I said clearly. Not because you helped tonight, not because of the money or the dress or any of it. I love you because you're kind and thoughtful and you make me feel safe. And I don't want this to end in 5 months. I want it to be real. His smile could have powered the entire city. Then let's make it real. He kissed me softly. No more contract. No more pretending. Just us. Just us, I agreed. And sitting in that hospital waiting room, still in our wedding clothes, exhausted and emotionally wrung out, we made a new promise to each other. This time, it was for real. 2 weeks later, Maldives. I woke up to sunlight streaming through white curtains, and Stellan's arm wrapped around my waist. Our overwater villa was paradise, turquoise water stretching to infinity, the sound of waves beneath us, complete privacy. But the best part? The man sleeping beside me was actually mine. No contract. No pretending. Just real, messy, beautiful love. You're staring, Stellan murmured, eyes still closed, a smile playing on his lips. You're stareable. That's not a word. It is now. I traced patterns on his chest. We should get up. Your grandfather wants to video call at noon. He groaned, pulling me closer. 5 more minutes. Those 5 minutes turned into 20, filled with lazy kisses and whispered promises. This was what I'd been missing my whole life. This easy intimacy, the certainty that someone chose you every single day. Finally, we dragged ourselves to the villa's living room, still in pajamas, hair messy, completely in love. Theodore's face appeared on the laptop screen, oxygen tubes in his nose, but his expression sharp as ever. You two look disgustingly happy, he observed. We are, Stellan said simply, his hand finding mine. Good. That's good. Theodore's eyes softened. I wanted to tell you. The papers are ready. Sign them when you return, and Murdoch Industries is officially yours, Stellan. You fulfilled the conditions. My stomach dropped. The conditions. 6 months of marriage, except it had only been 2 weeks. Stellan's hand tightened on mine. Grandfather. I know it hasn't been 6 months, Theodore interrupted. But I'm not stupid, boy. I can see the real thing when it's in front of me. He coughed, a rattling sound that made my chest ache. Life's too short to stick to arbitrary timelines. You found love. That's what matters. After the call ended, I turned to Stellan. He really believes it's real. It is real. But it started as a lie. The guilt I'd been suppressing bubbled up. We manipulated him, used his love for you to— Margot, stop. Stellan cupped my face. Yes, it started as a business arrangement. But what we have now, what we became, that's not manipulation, that's just us. I wanted to believe him. I really did. We returned to New York 3 days later. My mother was recovering beautifully, already planning to come visit the penthouse. The bakery space Stellan had secured for me was perfect. A corner shop in Brooklyn with exposed brick and enough room for all my equipment. Everything was falling into place. So why did I feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop? You're doing it again, Cecilia said. We were having lunch at a cafe near her office. That thing where you sabotage your own happiness. I'm not. You are. You have everything, Margot. The man, the business, the life you always wanted. But you're waiting for it to disappear. She wasn't wrong. What if he realizes he made a mistake? I said quietly. What if the reason he loves me is because I was convenient, available? What if you're just scared? Cecilia grabbed my hand. Love is terrifying, especially when it's real. But you can't let fear destroy the best thing that's ever happened to you. That evening, I decided to visit Theodore. Stellan was in back-to-back meetings, and I needed to clear my conscience. Mrs. Chen led me to the study where Theodore sat reading, looking frailer than he had on video. Margot, this is a surprise. I need to tell you something. I sat down before I could lose my nerve. About how Stellan and I really got together. His eyebrows rose. I'm listening. So I told him. Everything. The original contract, the fake engagement, how we'd planned to divorce after 6 months. The only thing I didn't mention was falling in love. That part was private, sacred, ours. When I finished, Theodore was quiet for a long moment. I see, he said finally. And you felt compelled to confess because you deserve the truth. Because you're signing over your life's work based on a lie, and that's not fair to you or to Stellan or— You love him. It wasn't a question. More than anything. And he loves you. I can see it every time he looks at you. Every time he says your name. Theodore leaned back. Do you know why I made marriage a condition for the company? To ensure family legacy? To ensure my grandson wouldn't end up like me. His voice cracked slightly. I loved my wife more than life itself. When she died, I threw myself into work, pushed everyone away, including my daughter, including Stellan, after she died too. I built an empire, Margot, but I did it alone, and it was hollow. He looked at me intently. I made that rule because I didn't want Stellan to wake up at 87, successful and wealthy, and completely alone, realizing he'd traded love for profit. Tears streamed down my face. How you two started doesn't matter, Theodore continued. What matters is where you are now. Real love, however it begins, is rare. Don't waste it by overthinking it. But the company is just a company. My grandson's happiness is worth more than any amount of money or power, he smiled. Though I appreciate your honesty. It confirms you're exactly the kind of person he needs. Someone who values truth over convenience. I left the estate feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Stellan was home when I arrived, tie loosened, looking exhausted. How was your day? I asked. Long. Board meeting ran over. Everyone's thrilled about the transition, but— He stopped, studying me. You've been crying. What happened? I told your grandfather the truth. All the color drained from his face. You what? About the contract, how we started, everything. Margot, why would you? Because he deserved to know, I crossed to him. And because I was scared that our foundation was built on lies, and I needed him to know that what we have now is real, even if how we started wasn't. Stellan sank onto the couch, head in his hands. What did he say? That how we started doesn't matter. that real love is rare, and that he's still signing the company over to you. He looked up, eyes shining. He said that. Word for word. I knelt in front of him. Stellan, I'm sorry I didn't ask you first, but I couldn't live with the guilt. I love you too much to build our life on deception. He pulled me into his lap, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. I love you, he whispered fiercely. God, Margot, I love you so much it terrifies me. Good. I kissed him. That makes two of us. We stayed like that, wrapped around each other, as the sun set over Manhattan. The city that had brought us together, where we'd made our ridiculous deal, where we'd accidentally fallen in love despite our best efforts. So what now? I asked. Stellan smiled against my hair. Now we build something real. A bakery, a life, a future. Together? Together. No more contracts, no more conditions. Just you and me, figuring it out as we go. That sounds perfect. And it was. 3 months later. Stop pacing. You're making me nervous. Stellan looked up from wearing a hole in my bakery's floor. What if nobody comes? Then we'll have a lot of cupcakes to eat ourselves. I adjusted the grand opening banner for the 3rd time. Stellan, relax. It's going to be perfect. Margot's Marvels was everything I'd dreamed of. Exposed brick walls covered with hand-painted murals, vintage display cases filled with my creations, the smell of vanilla and chocolate hanging in the air like a promise. My kingdom. My dream. Made possible by the man currently having a nervous breakdown on my behalf. You're supposed to be the calm, collected CEO, I teased, walking over to straighten his tie. Not the anxious husband. Husband, he smiled, catching my hands. I like the sound of that. Even though it started as fake? Especially because it started as fake. He kissed my forehead. It means we chose this. Chose each other. Every single day. The bell above the door chimed. Cecilia burst in, arms full of flowers. The line outside is insane, she squealed. There must be 50 people waiting. And page 6 is here. Apparently a billionaire CEO supporting his wife's small business is very newsworthy. She dumped the flowers on the counter. Also, Theodore's car just pulled up. My heart lurched. He came. Theodore had been in and out of the hospital for the past month. The doctor said weeks, maybe days. The fact that he'd made the trip to Brooklyn was... He wouldn't miss this, Stellan said softly. He's been talking about it non-stop. Mrs. Chen wheeled Theodore in, oxygen tank in tow. He looked frail, a shadow of the imposing man I'd met 4 months ago. But his eyes were bright. A bakery, he said, looking around with approval. Not a pastry shop. A bakery. Pastry chef, I corrected automatically, then grinned. But yeah, a bakery. I'm proud of you, Margot. He reached for my hand. You took a risk, built something from nothing. That takes courage. I had help. I glanced at Stellan. You had a partner. That's different. That's better. Theodore squeezed my hand weakly. Take care of my grandson. He's less stupid when you're around. Grandfather, Stellan protested, but he was smiling. I mean it. Theodore's voice grew serious. Life is short, painfully short. Don't waste a moment of it on pride or fear or anything that keeps you from being happy. He looked between us. You two found something rare. Honor it. We will, we said in unison. The grand opening was chaos in the best way. A line that stretched around the block. Customers raving about the lavender honey cupcakes and the chocolate raspberry torte. A food blogger crying, actually crying, over my croissants. Stellan worked the register like he'd been born to it, charming customers and sneaking bites of everything when he thought I wasn't looking. Having fun? I asked during a rare lull. Weirdly, yes. He pulled me close, not caring who saw. Watching you in your element, doing what you love, it's incredible. Even though I have flour in my hair, especially because you have flour in your hair. He kissed me, sweet and slow. Someone in line wolf whistled. We broke apart, laughing, and I realized something. This was happiness. Not the dramatic, sweep-you-off-your-feet kind from movies. The real kind, messy and imperfect, and filled with tiny, perfect moments. Late that night, after we'd sold out of everything and sent the last customer home with a free cookie, I found Stellan on the bakery's back step staring at his phone. "Hey." I sat beside him. "What's wrong?" "Theodore's in the hospital. It's time." The world stopped. We made it to the estate in record time. The family was already there. Cousins, aunts, uncles I'd barely met. They parted for us, understanding that we needed to be there. Theodore looked so small in the massive bed. But when he saw us, he smiled. "There you are," he whispered. "My favorite newlyweds." I sat on one side, Stellan on the other, each holding one of his hands. "The papers," Theodore said to Stellan. "Sign them. The company is yours. Take care of it." "Take care of her. Take care of yourself." "I will." Stellan's voice broke. "I promise." "Good boy." Theodore's eyes drifted to me. "And you, Margot Flynn Murdoch. Keep him human. Keep him happy. Keep him from turning into me." "That's impossible," I said through tears. "You're irreplaceable." "Flatterer." He coughed, wincing. "I'm glad he found you. Glad I got to see him happy. That's all any of us want, really. To know our people are okay." And we sat with him for hours, trading stories and memories, laughing and crying in equal measure. As dawn broke through the windows, Theodore took one last rattling breath. And then he was gone. 2 weeks later. The memorial service was enormous. Hundreds of people whose lives Theodore had touched. Stellan delivered the eulogy with dry eyes and a steady voice, talking about legacy and love and living fully. Afterward, in the quiet of the penthouse, he finally broke. I held him while he sobbed, all the grief and loss and exhaustion pouring out. We stayed like that for hours, just breathing together, finding comfort in presence. "He was right," Stellan said eventually, voice hoarse. "Life is too short. We can't waste it. We won't." He pulled back, wiping his eyes. "Marry me." I blinked. "We're already married. For real this time. No contracts, no conditions, no dying grandfather's rules. Just us, choosing each other." He cupped my face. "Marry me because you want to, not because you have to. Marry me because you love me and I love you, and we want to build a life together." Yes, I was crying and laughing at the same time. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Even though I'm a workaholic who doesn't know how to relax. Even though I'm chaotic and impulsive and burned toast. Especially because of that. He kissed me, tender and desperate and full of promise. We'll have a small ceremony, just us and the people who matter. And this time, when I say I do, it'll be the easiest words I've ever spoken. "They already were," I whispered. "Even the first time." "Yeah." He smiled against my lips. "Yeah, they were." And standing there in the penthouse where our fake marriage began, surrounded by Theodore's memory and our very real love, we started planning our future. A real future. Together. 1 year later. I still can't believe you're making your own wedding cake. I looked up from piping delicate sugar flowers to find Stellan leaning against the bakery's doorframe, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking at me like I'd hung the stars. "It's our wedding cake," I corrected. "And yes, I'm making it. Nobody else gets to." "It's midnight, Margot." "Your point?" He crossed the kitchen, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and rested his chin on my shoulder. "My point is that we're getting married tomorrow, again, and my beautiful, stubborn wife is covered in buttercream instead of sleeping. Almost done," I promised, leaning back into his warmth. "Just 3 more roses." The cake was a masterpiece, 5 tiers of lavender and ivory, covered in hand-painted flowers that matched the ones from our first wedding. But this time, every element meant something. Chocolate layers for the coffee shop where he proposed the fake marriage. Raspberry filling for the hospital waiting room, where we fell truly in love. Vanilla bean for all the breakfasts we'd shared since. This cake told our story, the real one. "Tell me again why we're doing this," Stellan murmured, kissing my neck. "Because the first wedding wasn't ours. It was for your grandfather, for the company, for everyone else." I turned in his arms. "This one is just for us." "Just us," he repeated, smiling. "I like that." The ceremony was in the bakery's courtyard, the small garden space we'd transformed with string lights and flowers. 20 people, that's all. Cecilia as maid of honor, wiping tears before the ceremony even started. My mother, healthy and glowing, sitting in the front row. Stellan's cousins and a few close friends. No press, no business associates, no one who didn't genuinely love us. I wore a simple cream dress, not the designer gown from before, but something I'd found in a vintage shop in Brooklyn. Stellan wore the same suit from our first wedding because it's the one I married you in the first time, and I'm superstitious now. The officiant was a friend of Cecilia's, warm and genuine, who'd helped us write our own vows. When it was time, Stellan took my hands, his voice steady and sure. "Margot, a year ago, I asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons. I was desperate, closed off, convinced that love was a weakness I couldn't afford. Then you walked into my life with your burnt toast and terrible jokes and your absolute refusal to let me hide behind my walls." His voice cracked slightly. "You saw me, the real me, and somehow, impossibly, you loved what you saw. Today I'm asking you to marry me for all the right reasons. Because you make me laugh. Because you make me brave. Because every morning I wake up next to you feels like winning the lottery. I love you, Margot Flynn Murdoch. Not because a contract says I should, but because I can't imagine not loving you." I was crying before he finished. Cecilia was sobbing. Even my mom had tissues out. "Stellan," I began, voice shaking, "when you proposed that ridiculous fake marriage, I thought you were the most arrogant, emotionally constipated man I'd ever met." Laughter rippled through our tiny crowd. I was right, by the way. You were all those things, but you were also kind and protective, and so afraid of being hurt that you'd rather feel nothing at all. And somehow, between the fake breakfast conversations and the very real way you held my hand, I fell completely in love with you. I squeezed his hands. You gave me my dream bakery. You gave me security and support, and a life I never thought I'd have. But more than that, you gave me yourself, the real you. And that's the greatest gift I've ever received. I love you. Not fake love, not convenient love, real, messy, forever love. I now pronounce you, for the second time, husband and wife," the officiant said, grinning. "Stellan, kiss your wife, again." And he did, soft and sweet and full of promise. Our friends cheered. Cecilia wolf whistled. My mom took approximately 300 photos. It was perfect. The reception was catered by local restaurants. The cake was divine, if I do say so myself, and we danced under string lights until our feet hurt. "Happy?" Stellan whispered as we swayed together. "Ridiculously happy." I looked up at him. "You?" I didn't know I could feel like this. Like everything finally makes sense. Later, after our guests had left and we were cleaning up, I found Stellan on the roof of the bakery, staring at the Manhattan skyline. "What are you thinking about?" I asked, settling beside him. "My grandfather, wishing he could have been here." "He was," I said softly, "in every way that matters. This," I gestured to the lights, the empty courtyard, the life we'd built. "This is what he wanted for you. Happiness. Real connection. Love. He'd like knowing we did it our way. He'd be proud." Stellan pulled me close. "I have something for you. We said no gifts." "It's not a gift, it's..." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a legal document. I scanned it quickly, then looked up in shock. "You dissolved the original contract?" "Yesterday. Officially voided." Whatever money you were supposed to get, whatever clauses were in there, gone. I don't want any legal tie binding us together. He cupped my face. Just love. Just choice. Every day, choosing each other. You romantic idiot, I whispered, kissing him. I would have chosen you anyway. I know. But now there's no doubt. No safety net. No backup plan. He smiled. Just us. Terrifyingly, wonderfully real. 6 months later, I stood on the rooftop terrace of Murdoch Tower, the city glittering below, and felt Stellan's arms wrap around me from behind. You're thinking too loud, he murmured. I'm pregnant. His entire body went still. Then he spun me around, eyes wide, searching my face. We're... Really? Really. I pulled the positive test from my pocket. Surprise? He laughed, or cried, I couldn't tell which, and lifted me off my feet, spinning us in circles while I shrieked with laughter. We're having a baby, he said wonderingly, setting me down gently. A tiny human. Our tiny human. Are you ready for this? Absolutely not. He kissed me breathless. But we'll figure it out. Together. Together, I agreed. And standing there, in the same place where he'd confessed his love all those months ago, surrounded by the city that brought us together and the life we'd built, I realized something. Sometimes the best things come from the worst plans. Sometimes love sneaks up on you when you're busy making other arrangements. Sometimes a fake marriage becomes the realest thing you've ever known. I love you, Stellan whispered against my hair. I love you too, I said. For real. Forever. No contracts necessary. No contracts necessary, he echoed, laughing. And as the city lights sparkled below and our future stretched out before us, messy and uncertain and absolutely perfect, I knew that this, right here, was exactly where I was supposed to be. With him, always. The end.